Hey everyone, and welcome back to Garden Mess. My name is Carrie and I garden in Zone 8B in Northwest Louisiana. Today I plan to put a buddleia into my front garden space. Right now it's currently very shady over here, but it will get full sun probably around 11 o'clock in the morning, and it'll get it all the way until the sun sets around, well, in the summertime around 7:38 at night. So I have a buddleia right here. And this is a Miss Violet. She has been sitting in her container for quite some time. Uh, she has dried out a couple times and I've watered her. We just have such hot days here, and then we had a lot of rain. And so to plant her in the ground, I needed the soil to be somewhat dry and not super moist. But as you can see, she does have some pretty little blooms forming, and I'm still working on cutting off her spent blooms. I believe her blooms should be a lot larger than this, but she's been suffering, so her blooms are kind of on the small side. Anyway, so I'm going to get her planted in the ground today. Again, I'm going to plant her a little bit further up so that I still have walking space, because she does grow between 4 and 5 feet tall and wide. So like this entire space right here, she'll end up taking up, kind of like my white butterfly bush that I have on the other corner of the house. She won't get as much sun as that corner buddleia does, so I'm expecting her to not grow past the 5 feet. My other one was a 4 to 5 foot tall variety too, and it grows up to 7, 8 feet tall. But that buddleia is in full sun all day, even early morning, because the way the sun hits in the sky. Anyway, so I'm going to put this buddleia down here, and this is where I'm going to end up planting it. So this is where it's going to go, right behind this Gara. And I think between the purple and the white, it'll be real pretty. And then, of course, with the pink roses. And then, of course, I have my blue Cape Leadwort right here. And then I hope I can get in the ground, if I have time, see how long it takes me to dig the hole for the buddleia. I do plan to dot some phlox that I bought the other day around the garden, just to fill in some of the spacing that I have open here. And then my tripod is right over an area that I have some, sad, but it died, some Dusty Miller. I don't know, all my Dusty Millers died this year. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe too much water during that season created a fungus that maybe they don't like, and it's in the soil, because it doesn't matter that the soil's dried out and that I have not been watering it. They're still rotting out, like from the roots. And so it could be that there's a fungus that has gotten into all of them. So anyway, I'll try to maybe next year plant them in sand or something, sand and rocks, I don't know. But if we have a rainy season like we did this year, late spring, early summer, I mean, we had so much rain. It was incredible how much rain we got. But I really think that's what's to blame, because I've had these here for over 2 years. So for them to have succumbed to the moisture is, anyway, it's shocking. But all right, so let me get to putting this Miss Violet in the ground right here. And I might have to remove just a little bit of monkey grass. If I do, I'll cut that part out, because it's, of course, boring as all get out. But I will probably have to remove some just to create space for the roots, so when I have to come back and remove some more, I'm not hitting the roots of the buddleia. The last time I was digging in here, I cut my drip tubing and I had to fix it. And I don't know if I posted that video yet or not, but so I have to be real careful when I dig around in here. I don't know where the drip tubing is. It looks like it goes further over that way, so I think I'm safe where I'm at. Come on, let loose. You're out of here. Protest all you want. I'm not doing a very good job of getting up out of the ground. Gosh, this has been here for I don't know how long. Its root system is just so thick. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that this is like a Every time I go to plant something, I have to remove liriope, because the people who originally lived here, when they planted their garden, it was a no fuss, like all green, barely anything flowered. So like they had a lot of Asian plants, lots of ligustrum. Let's see, they did japonica, camellias, sasanquas, and all this liriope stuff, boxwoods, holly, shrubs, akuba, fatsia. So a lot of Japanese variety, like japonicas. Japanese yews. They had this kind of viburnum. I don't even know what kind it was. I never could figure it out because it never bloomed. Never. Not one time did I ever see it bloom. Even when I stopped trimming it altogether, it never bloomed. So it was either way too old and had spent itself and just didn't have it in it anymore, which I did a rejuvenation prune, cut them all the way down. And even when I did that, they grew back and never bloomed. So I don't know. And I never saw, nothing, just green leaves. Green leaves, that's it. So I removed all those and put flowers in its place in that flower bed. I tried to save one of them just because they made great privacy hedges. So I wanted to be able to propagate it so that when I did my fence line, I would put them on the fence line instead, because again, they made a great backdrop. The people had planted it to go around the patio because they had a hot tub, and you didn't need anything around that hot tub. You wouldn't have seen anything. So it was definitely a useful plant. It just, for what I wanted, it just didn't do anything. Just kind of like taking up space. But it was a viburnum of some sort, and it grew fast. So when I chopped it all the way down, it grew 5 feet in a year in one cycle. So it's fast growing shrub, small tree. In fact, I saw them around the neighborhood. I've seen them in the neighborhood, and they are trees. Like, the people have never limbed them up, and they look like trees. But they don't have they're not shapely. They're not, they're not like gumballs or anything like that. But I've seen the Chinese snowball viburnums, and that's not what they are. Or that's not what they were. Okay, I think I have enough of this removed. All right, little butterfly bush. Okay, let's measure this out real quick because I don't want to do this wrong. So I'm 5 feet 1 inch. So this is probably like 3.5 feet. So I want to be at least, okay, that's 3.5 feet from that, which is more than it needs to be. It only needs to be like 2.5, 3 feet. So I'm going to put it right here. I think right between these is good. And I'll move this echinacea. You probably can't see it in the view, but there is an echinacea right there, and I will end up moving it. Might sit this back just a little further, actually. Oh. Oopsies. All right. You got to go further back. You'll be safe back there. I just bent one of its little limbs, little branches. When I first started working and developing this garden space, I had Indian hawthorns in here. And they were like, I don't know if they were a dwarf variety or not, but they would get at least 4 feet tall. I think they'd get taller if I had let them, but I always pruned them into little hedge looking things. So they were always sickly, always. This fungus, I mean, they never look good. They're like those red tip photinias that people planted a while back in all these neighborhoods. Anyway, so they stay sickly looking like that. They start losing their leaves. Their leaves turn red and yellow and then start falling off and defoliating. Well, that's a big root. And it doesn't go to anything because I had an oak tree that used to be right where these rose bushes are. So I'm sure that goes to the old oak. All right, let me see if I've got this deep enough yet. Come here, little Miss Violet. Oh. As far as spacing's fine. But I can't go 2 inches deeper with that root. I could probably work to chop it out, but kind of lazy. And 2 inches to the right or left isn't going to make a big difference. Well, there's a whole root system down here. Guess I will have to. Okay. All right, root slayer, do your job. That's one side. Almost. I think I can get it up now. Nope. All right, let me stand on this side. Oh, I think I got it. All right. Oh, perfect. In fact, a little too deep. So, let's get some of the soil back in there. I'm kind of slowly putting it back in because I have to check for those liriope little. So liriope grows from those little white growths that come off of it, little rhizomes. And I'm looking for the little nuts, the little, or maybe those are the rhizomes. I never can remember, but they have like these little they look like buoys that you put in the water to keep your boat from. Anyway, that's what they look like to me. And that's what I'm tossing behind me, or any of those little rhizomes, and any of those little buoy looking things. And the buoys are attached to the roots, so the little white things snap off. They're like little bean sprout looking things. You can snap them. They're moist and all that kind of stuff in the middle. But the little buoy things, which I don't know what they're called. I'll show you one. All right, I got some biotone and some worm castings, and I put some compost down into the. All right, that's better. That's better. I definitely want to be on something dry though. Where's my, I don't know where my kneeling pad is. All right. Take this soil, put it back around. All right, I've got most of the soil put back around the root ball, and I'm going to go around it with some compost just on the top surface. Not very thick, just enough to help feed it as it breaks down, and then I'll come back with some mulch. And I planted it up high because this area does get or holds on to moisture a little bit longer than, say, other areas in my yard. In fact, usually this area does not get bone dry ever. And that could be for myriad of reasons, but I've never really sat around to think about it, other than maybe it's more sheltered. So that could be the reason. All right, Miss Violet is in the ground. Yay, she will enjoy her life a lot more now. Instead of being in this container going from hot to wet all the time, it hasn't been very good for her. You'll have to forgive me because my hands are muddy, and well, let me see if I can wipe this off. Okay, hopefully it's not too dirty. But as you can see, she is in zone 5 to 9. She gets about 4 to 5 feet tall and wide, and I did space her out. She does not create seed, so she's not invasive, which is good. Drought tolerant. And this is a well draining area. Again, it stays moist, but it's not like soppy moist. Like this never really turns into sloppy mud. Anyway, so this is what she looks like when she's, see how much bigger her panicles are? Her panicles are super small because, again, she's been in this container and not happy with me in the container where I had her. So had to get her in the ground. So when people are walking by, they already don't see the spiderwort. It is already hidden by the gaura, but they will see the butterfly bush, and they will see the Cape Leadwort. And that Cape Leadwort has been there now probably 3 years. This is its 3rd year, and it does really well there. And I love that plant. I love the blue color. I think it's gorgeous, and it's nice to have a pop of pretty cornflower blue, I think. So now I think I'm gonna go ahead and start digging a hole for this phlox. That is definitely a color that I don't have over here, which is that fuchsia pink. To quote Jim Putnam with Port Tube, I guess you could say that I too have a clown college garden style. If I see a plant and I think it's pretty, well, I bring it home and I find a place for it. And I might have just one of each plant in the yard, but it's okay with me because I love it. I think it looks pretty. And I can appreciate each individual plant all on its own. I definitely can do that. So, all right, the echinacea that I have planted back here, I transplanted from the side garden. I had like 30 or 40 babies, and so I didn't want them to die or anything. So I did, I did transplant a lot of them. I'm going to put this by the strip hose right here. No water comes out of this strip hose. Water does come out of this drip tube right here. I might have too much mulch in here, and that's why maybe those dusty millers are not faring so well. All right, I'm going to put this phlox in this hole right here. Now this abelia here, and I think it's Radiance or Lemon, maybe Miss Lemon abelia. I think that's what that variety is. It might get like 4 feet wide, so it may eventually crowd out this phlox, and if it does, I will move it. But this phlox here can get up to 3 feet tall, supposedly. In my area, it probably could get bigger, in which case I'll have to move it back. Before I forget, let me tell you, I already showed this once in a video, but just in case you haven't seen that video, this is a Luminary Ultraviolet, and this is phlox. Again, it's a perennial from my area. You'll see that the bottom leaves are kind of toast, and they were like that or already getting to that when I bought these. They were so crowded in the space that they were kept. And I think when they get crowded like that, the bottom leaves never fare well. But I get it. They need to pack them in. I get it. Numbers matter, so they have to pack it in. Let me grab my little bucket so I can catch the soil and not get it in my mulch. I don't have to go very deep. Nope, not very deep at all. I'm just loosening the soil up at the bottom. Kind of like putting air into it and loosening it up. And then I'm going to tap it down gently. Let me test to make sure that this is a good height. Which I think it is. I think this is very good because where the mulch is going to come up to, it'll be perfect. So let me go get my, oh, where am I going? Gotta go get some of my root and my worm castings. Now you ask, how in the world did I pull all that soil out and it didn't even fill the hole with the plant in it? And that's because this clay, when it's kind of moist, and this one is kind of moist like that, it just doesn't, it like, I don't even know how to explain it, but it gets, I don't know, it shrinks. It doesn't shrink, but it compacts. So it's super compacted. So it just doesn't go in and fill up as much space as it does when it's dry. Now don't forget, in my area, I have really thick, moisture holding clay. And so I don't plant my plants, especially the ones that are drought tolerant and the ones that don't like a lot of moisture on their roots. I don't plant mine as deep. Sometimes I miss the mark and I do plant them too deep, which I think I did on the Cosmo here that's petering out. So once in a while I do make a mistake and get it a little too deep. So if you live in an area that does not have clay soil like mine, you do not want to do that. You want to work on amending your soil. We all do. We all need to amend our soil to get that perfect soil consistency. But since none of us live in a perfect environment like that, especially if we're new gardeners and we've never amended our soil, we really have to work on, while the soil's getting amended, because it takes several years for it to actually get there. All the organic material has to break down and compost into the soil to create those different particles. And some particles hold moisture, other particles don't hold moisture, and so with the combination it just creates the perfect environment. But anyway, so we have, it takes time to get your soil to be just right. This bed is only, I want to say this bed's only 2 years old, where my other beds where the soil's just like, I don't even have to use a shovel. I can put my hand in there and pull out soil to make a little hole. That's been amended now. I've been working on that for 4 years. So it's finally, like, this year is probably the first year that I feel like, hey, this soil is getting better. Like nothing's rotting out in that area, except for the very edges where I just created, like I keep expanding them, and that area is very thick, hard, moisture retentive clay. And anyway, so that area might be kind of problematic, but as far as the main bed that I've had for 4 years, it's doing really well. In fact, I planted a buddleia over there, transplanted one the other day, and it didn't take me any time to dig that hole. I had that hole dug, that buddleia planted, and I didn't have to, like, the buddleia, the Miss Violet buddleia that I planted, I didn't even show the backfilling of the hole because the soil was so just that original clay that it's almost like you can't even get it off your gloves. Like, it's like just slick mud. Like if you went and got a mud facial, it's slick like that when it gets wet. And so to put it back around the roots, you know, I had to really like pack it around the roots, and then the rest of it I could be all crumbly. So I didn't even show that because it just takes so long. Where over there in that flower bed on the west side of the house, that soil has been, I mean, I've been faithfully putting in this compost with a little bit with every planting, and then mulching and things like that over the last 4 years. And like I said, I dug that hole, put the buddleia in it, and I was able to just sweep the soil right back into the hole. I didn't have to break it up. I didn't have to do anything to it. And again, I added a little bit more compost because I'm going to do that every single time. But anyway, soil consistent, the consistency of your soil really does make a difference. So that is definitely a focus of mine, and I'm going to keep focusing on it. Anyway, this is a little echinacea right here that I transplanted, as I explained. And then I have some cleome right here, and the heavy rain kind of knocked it sideways, and so it keeps wanting to lean over that way. And I keep trying to take some of these rocks to short up some so it stands upright. But that's because, you know, those 4-inch, when you buy 4-inch containers and you get them in the ground, the one negative about 4-inch containers, so I was saying that these cleome here, they were 4-inch containers. And what happens with 4-inch containers, while they're really great for ease of planting, you know, you don't have to dig a hole very deep. The negative about them is that when the wind and the rain comes, there's not much of a root system from that 4-inch container to hold them upright and to give them that sturdiness. And especially if they're in an area that does stay not wet but moist, you know, they can tend to flop over. So keep that in mind when you're planting something. If you're doing the 4-inch containers, just know that, again, it takes a while for the roots to really get out to anchor them down. So when the wind comes, they can blow them over. But look, all you gotta do is get a rock or something and prop them up. It's no big deal. But if you don't like that, keep that in mind. You may want to buy a bigger plant in a bigger container that has good root system. Now, I will also say this, just a bit of advice when you go shopping for plants. When you are buying a larger container plant, you do, while you're there, you want to take that plant out of the container and look at those roots. If you don't see a lot of deep roots, don't buy that plant, because so I'll give you an example, and it could just be the variety of plant, but the abelia, you know, the abelias I bought were in a gallon size or 2-gallon size container. But when I took them out of the container, because I did not check them at the store, I just scooped them up. Well, the whole bottom half of the container, the soil just fell right off because there's no roots in it. So keep that in mind too. So even if you grab a bigger plant, make sure it has the root system, because if you're doing it so that, you know, they are more anchored into the ground, make sure you check and make sure there are roots for that reason. You don't want to buy a bigger plant to find out it has a very little root system, and so it still tips over. Just some advice there. Anyway, I love it. I love it. I love the colors. I think the colors go really well together, y'all. So again, this is a Illuminati or Luminary. Oops, I've already forgotten. A Luminary. Oh, hey. Luminary, not Illuminary, Luminary Ultraviolet. And let me just show you the tag. Sorry, y'all have really dirty, messy hands. Okay, Luminary Ultraviolet. All right, so this one gets 32 to 36 inches tall and wide. It's hardy in zone 3 through 8, which I'm at the very top or bottom top of its zone. So as far as heat zone, I'm probably the hottest it can get. So I'm right there on the edge. And it blooms mid to late summer. And it does need full sun, which is going to get here. In fact, let's see, it's 11 o'clock now. And the sun is getting closer and closer. So this will be in full sun by noon and then be in the sun until 8 o'clock at night. Yep. So it should love its life, and hopefully, like all the other phlox in my garden, it will continue to bloom and be very strong and sturdy with their stems. I have 5 more of these, so I have to find some other places for them. Anyway, let's see. The buddleia that we had planted is right there. And I'll scoot back a little so you can see. Now the sun is popping out, so y'all, it's not as pretty as it could be. But there it is. We've got some Gara growing right here. Those orange marmalades are not filling out nearly as fast as they did last year. And it's got to be the water. There it is. And that part's already in the sun, so it's not going to look so great in picture, but it's coming together. Can't wait to see that butterfly bush bigger. By the fall, I'll be able to see where it's going to, like if it's in the right spot or not. I think it'll be just fine. It's in a space where it can grow 4 to 5 feet tall. Well, that's going to do it for me today. Just a little recap of what I did. We got that Miss Violet buddleia butterfly bush in the ground today. And those, again, are zone 5 to 9. They love the heat. They love full sun. So if you live in a southern climate like mine, go ahead and get a butterfly bush. Again, they're not invasive. They do not self-seed, so you don't have to worry about them spreading around your yard. The other thing that I planted was that phlox. Again, that was Luminary Ultraviolet, and it is zone 3 through 9. Or actually, I'm sorry, 3 through 8. And they love the heat. They love full sun. They do really well in my climate. Now, I am at the very edge of their heat climate. And so keep that in mind. If you're in zone 9, you may want to put them in a place where they get more shade in the late afternoon. But as far as my climate, they can take full all-day sun. So I have it planted where it's going to get about 7 to 8 hours of sunlight per day. And I will update you to show you how well it does. But again, if you're looking for a plant that loves the sun and doesn't mind the heat and also humidity, that's the other thing. These plants do really well with our high humidity. I mean, some days our humidity is like 80%. It's and our temperature at night, what makes us different from other areas that are zone 8, more western, is that our climate is humid and our temperatures at night do not cool down to the extent that it does in more desert arid areas. So where in California it may get up to 100, 105, 110 in the daytime, and the phlox might do just fine, and the butterfly bushes. In our area, their area, their temperatures at night will drop down into the 60s, 50s. Not our area. Our area stays, I think maybe the lowest it gets in the summertime at night might be 76, 75, 76, but it's usually in the 80s. So if we get up to 100 degrees in the daytime, we're cooling down to like a low 80. So if you have a climate similar to mine where in the evening time there's not much of a respite for your plants, butterfly bushes, phlox, they do really well. I also showed you that I have in my landscape that blue Cape Leadwort. That does really well as well. So if you ever need to know about a plant that does well in hot and humid climates, come back, check out our channel, and just check and see what kind of plants we have growing in our yard. I don't do a lot of annuals. I do mostly perennials because annuals can pretty much live anywhere during the right season. But perennials are the ones that come back every year. Those are the ones that you really need to pay attention to as far as how will they handle the heat and the humidity of the South. You know, I want to have a lilac bush really bad, but I know lilacs will not do well in my area because of the heat during the night. It's not the heat during the day, it's the heat during the night. And so I don't have a lilac, although I keep waiting for them to create one that, you know, can handle the heat in the evening. But anyway, that's just an example of a plant that it can handle my heat in the daytime, but it can't handle the heat and the humidity that we have in the evening. So just keep that in mind. But until next time, y'all, happy gardening. And if you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe and be notified of our future videos. Have a good day, y'all. Bye-bye.